Hey guys, welcome back to another Blender tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to crush any geometry in Blender. So let's get started.
Artlist.io.
Before we crush anything, I want you to enable a certain add-on called Self-Fracture add-on. So go to Edit, Preferences, and under Add-on, just search Self-Fracture and just check that checkbox so that it becomes enabled. Now let's just create a scene for this. So let's add a plane and scale this up. Now let's move our cube up in Z-axis. And now let's break this cube into tiny little pieces. So make sure the cube is selected. Go to Object, Quick Effects, and under that select Self Fracture. Now once you get that pop-up, click on vertices and click OK. Now you can see our cube broke into smaller cubes. That's because it is low poly, and in order to break this in a tiny pieces, we have to make this high poly. So to that, go to edit mode and subdivide this 34 times. Once you've done that, let's go back to object mode and make sure the cube is selected. Go to object, quick effects, and select self fracture, and same again, select the own vertices and click OK. Now you can see our cube is breaking into small random pieces. Once it breaks, you can see that there is an overlay. What I mean is, on top of that small tiny pieces, there is an actual unbroken cube on top of that. And I want you to hide that cube for now, because we can animate this using this cube. Now let's give a rigid body for these tiny little pieces. So select the piece which is easily accessible and go to physics properties and add a rigid body. Now when you hit the spacebar, the piece we just added a rigid body falls down. But there's a problem to it. You can see that tiny little piece is passing through the plane. So to avoid that, we have to add a rigid body to the plane as well. So select the plane, go to physics properties, add rigid body, but we are going to change the type from active to passive. So now when you hit play, our piece will not go through the plane but stay on top of that. Now let's copy this rigid body property to all other tiny pieces. So make sure you select all the pieces and highlight the one you just added a rigid body. Once you've done that, go to object and under rigid body just select copy from active. So now when you hit play, all the pieces will fall down. Now let's give it a visualization that a sphere is falling on top of the cube and breaking it. So let's add a sphere. So press Shift A, Mesh, Sphere. Now let's just move this up in Z-axis. And let's add rigid body to the sphere as well. And set the type to active. And set the mass anywhere between 15 kilograms to 20 kilograms. Now when you play, we can see that our cube and the sphere is falling. But there's a problem over here. As you can see, the geometry is breaking before the sphere touches it, and to avoid that we have to keyframe this. But before we keyframe this, let's bring this cube down so that it is flushed with the plane. Now let's keyframe this. So select a piece which is easily accessible and under rigid body uncheck the dynamic and add a keyframe at frame 0. Now find the keyframe where the sphere touches the piece. So for me it's frame 13. Now once you find that piece, enable the dynamic for the same piece and add a keyframe to that specific frame. Now you can see the piece stays there till the frame 13, and after the frame 13 it starts to fall. So let's just copy the same property to all of the pieces. So select all of the pieces and highlight the one you just animated and press Ctrl L and click copy animation data. Now when you play, you can see that it breaks when the sphere touches it. To take this animation to the next level, we'll use the cube which we hid in the beginning of this video. Just align the cube on top of the broken pieces. Now if you look over to our right side, we can see a camera icon. What it does actually is that if you disable that camera, the object which is in the viewport will not be rendered. So it would be invincible at the final video. Now we'll use this feature to animate the specific cube. Now make sure the camera is enabled and we'll add a keyframe on frame 0. So just right click on the camera and insert a keyframe, and we'll add another keyframe at frame 13. So bring that time bar to the frame 13 and uncheck the camera icon and just add a keyframe. So now our cube will be visible till the frame 13. After the frame 13, it will become invincible. Because of that, we get that effect that the sphere is breaking the cube into smaller pieces. But you cannot see that actually working in the viewport, but in the final render it will turn out like that. So let's just hide this cube for now. Now let's give a texture to our sphere. But before that, let's make the sphere more smooth. So go to modifier, add a modifier called subdivision surface. And now let's go to material properties and click on new. Set the roughness to 0.1 and the metallic to all the way up to 1. Now if you go to rendered mode and enable the default HDRI, the sphere would look like this. Now let's texture the broken pieces. So select a single piece, go to material properties, click on new and set the preferred color. I'm gonna keep it to green and set the roughness to 0, transmission all the way up to 1 and IOR to 1.7 so that you get a glass effect. Now let's copy the same material to all of the broken pieces. So select all the pieces and highlight the one we just gave the material and press Ctrl L, link materials. Now all the broken pieces will have the same material as the highlighted one. So now let's add an actual HDRI to our viewport. So go to shading and set this to world and we'll add a texture. So press Shift A and the texture will add environmental texture and click on new and search for the HDRI you just downloaded, and the link of this specific HDRI will be in the description, so you could download this and use the same HDRI. Now after adding the HDRI, if you go to rendered mode, our viewport will look like this. Now let's just go back to layout and align our camera to our viewport. So find a good view on your viewport. And after finding a good view on your viewport, just press Ctrl Alt Numpad 0. If you don't have a numpad, go to View, Align Active Camera to View. Now go to View, Navigation and select Walk Navigation at the very below. What it makes is that it enables the WASD keys and the mouse for us to set the camera so that it will be easier for us. Now if you don't know, there are two types of render engines. One is Eevee and one is Cycles. Eevee uses artificial intelligence for light reflection and Cycle uses ray tracing so that it looks very photorealistic. And for this particular project, I'm going to use Cycles. And last but not least, we'll make this plane look like a glass table. So select the plane, go to Material Properties, click on New and set the roughness to 0.1 and transmission to all the way up. Now our plane looks like a glass table. So that's it. That is how you crush or break any geometry in Blender. Make sure you try out your own way and so that you get better at Blender. and also leave a comment if you have any questions about this video. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe Blender for You in YouTube as well as in Instagram so that you don't miss out newer uploads. Thanks for watching, guys.